it changes some things. So notice, if the point of dilation is right on that vertex, right? Is the image point, did it move? No. Because the point of dilation is on the vertex, so it didn't move at all. But notice this distance here was multiplied now by 1.5. So if I take half that distance, roughly here, oh yeah, that's 1.5 times.
So you'll always like you'll multiply by different so the stretch it says 1.5. Do you always multiply 1.5 or you would like?
Well, for this stretch, but remember, for it to be a stretch, it just has to be greater than what? 1. Like make it colder? Sure.
No, it's really good. It feels good.
The only thing I can control is the temperature. So tell me to turn the temperature up or down. Hey, that's not even me. I did not drop it to there. Now, I said that wasn't me. I didn't drop it to there. So I want you to notice this compression, right? Notice if I take this point of dilation and move it outside, you see this distance from this point to the pre-image? If I multiply that distance by 0.5, oh, that is right in the middle, isn't it? Same thing here.
It's also right.
It's right in the middle. Oh. And so that's what's actually happening there. Okay? So, also I still want you to notice those lengths, they've been halved, right? But what's happening to my angle measures?
They're the same.
They're the same. So, the last detail that we need to include here, you see where it talks about similar figures or images? What should we say? This is a 1 to 2 sentence final summary of everything we've learned. I am telling you right here and right now that similar figures occur when a pre-image is dilated. Okay? So first off, similar figures, that is when we dilate an image. So, a similar figure, let's say a similar figure
Camera's still on.
Someone turned down my hair and I didn't realize it. I was not cool. The direction is that's the order. Alright. So, what's creating a similar figure again? Brandon? What's creating a similar figure again?
Dilation.
When did your name become Brandon?
Oh, my bad.
Dilation, right? A similar figure is created by a dilation. Right? So I want us to establish that first and foremost, a similar figure is created by a dilation.
Yes.
But what does that mean practically for us? What do we know about similar figures then? As a result of it being a dilation and everything we've done with dilations, what do we know?
It's created by a dilation. It's on board.
Think about the features that were preserved and not preserved. So what about the sides?
It changed.
It did change.
Not preserved.
Not preserved. But that means if we looked at those sides, if we looked at the image to the pre-image, there is a constant what between the sides? What do we call this thing?
Ratio?
There's a constant ratio between all the sides. That means there's a P word you studied in middle school. I think I even said it the other day. They are what?
Point dilations?
What?
No, I know.
Oh, wait. I wrote that down somewhere.
Active.
What? Proactive? That's the thing.
No.
1 second.
I don't even remember
We
those
learned that.
habits.
We learned that in elementary school.
What is it? I can't find where I wrote it.
Prescription.
So the
Probably no.
images.
Proportional.
There we go. Are proportional.
Oh, close.
No, you wasn't.
Yeah, I said.
You
Okay.
said prescription.
There's a constant ratio between the side lengths. So those images are proportional. And we can use that ratio to figure out unknown things. And we're going to use that in the next unit very heavily. Okay? So they are proportional. That means that those ratios are going to hold. So, was it a completely different shape as a result of a dilation?
Yes. No. Say that again. Say that again.
So like if I dilated this thing,
Okay.
would I get this?
No.
No? So is it a completely different shape?
Yes.
No.
No, you just said it's not going to be that.
Oh. Yeah.
So is it a different shape?
No. Because also
No.
on 3 sides.
It's going to be a different, there's another S word.
Size.
Size.
Sides.
Does that make sense now, Ren? Yeah. So remember, the shape stays the same, just the size changes, right? The side lengths, the perimeter, are proportional. So there's a constant ratio between side lengths, so the images are proportional. And the shape is the same. Is there anything else that might be really important that's the same?
Orientation.
Angles.
Oh.
That's the bigger one. 100% on the orientation, but the angles are all what?
Congruent.
Congruent. There we go. And the shape and corresponding, the shape, I should say, is the same. And corresponding angles are congruent. We've learned a lot of math over the last few days. This, well, hopefully, we've done a lot of math over the last few days. That is a summary of everything we have learned with dilations. That is the most important thing. A similar figure is created by a dilation, and as a result, there is a constant ratio between side lengths, so the images are proportional, and the shape is the same, and corresponding angles are congruent. That is foundational to everything we're going to study in the next unit called trigonometry.
Huh?
Y'all go, ew, just because it's a long word. You don't even know what it means. So why are you sweating it? It's a word.
Wrong word.
I don't like the word.
I said ooh, not you.
Some of y'all said ew.
I don't like it.
It sounds hard because it's a word?
Yeah, it's a long word.
It's a hard word to say.
It just sounds like it.
It's a word you've never heard before. Of course it sounds hard.
I did hear that word.
Trigonometry? The
Hey,
whatever.
Josh, Brandon, y'all paying attention, gentlemen?
Yep.
You have all this written down?
No.
Yeah, we do.
Well, then how are you going to study it if you don't have it written down, bud?
There's always something big on my paper.
Good job. Don't write it down. Don't know it for the test, and struggle on the test. That's a brilliant strategy. Good job on now writing it down. I am telling you that this is a summary of everything we've learned. So would this be important to know?
Yes.
Yes.
Duh. Just kidding. Now wait tomorrow.
My mind is blown right now that you are so obstinate that I am telling you that you need to know this and you still won't write it down.
Lazy.
Thank you.
Now wait tomorrow.
This is hard.
Alright.
The screen.
No, let them sleep.
When is this again?
On test day.
When is this?
Just let them sleep.
Sometime next week.
So you're saying if I
No, let them sleep. Like literally, let them.
I mean,
I want to wait for work.
I will give you all two options, but I'll explain them in a second.
Pay $50.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what?
No, they chose.
Oh.
They made poor decisions. Yes, Alicia. Why don't you use the restroom before class?
It's really crowded in there.
Okay, but
Yeah, it gets really.
if
It's
y'all,
really,
okay,
really bad.
please hear me very clearly on this then. If you have not heard me say this before, because you haven't asked, if you do your bell ringer first, I will let you go after you finish the bell ringer before we start going over it, so there are not as many girls in the bathroom.
Okay, that's not bad.
Does that sound like a good plan in the future? Go use the restroom. But, ladies, I understand that it gets packed in there, so come in, do your bell ringer, but that means you need to get in here quickly, finish bell ringer before we start going over it, and then you can use the restroom at the very beginning of class. Gentlemen, same deal, but you gotta be responsible. Okay? We're gonna get started in just a second. I know we're bored. While we're waiting, Jordan, can you make sure everyone gets one of those? Some people may already have one. Did either of y'all get any of y'all get this yesterday? At the grading class. Only some students wanted it as their own.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be for that, yes. Did anybody already get this yesterday? Kelsey, I think you did, didn't you? No? The literacy for all thing?
Yeah, nobody got that yesterday.
People did stay behind and get it.
Nobody but the people who went.
Which I don't think Bashar did get it yesterday, but you know.
Or maybe he didn't know. Maybe it was an emergency. You gave me two. He's not supposed to have two? Okay. How many?
Pretty sure it's just one article that you have, so you need to.
Is it 2 pages?
Oh, thank God. You're supposed to have two. So this doesn't have this now. Oh, this is easy.
No, it's not, because watch me 3 pages.
I done, no, this, even this is math. I did 4 pages in history.
She did 3 of them.
Yes, sir.
And get your paper. And
You have to wait till Elise comes back, but also, like, you gotta go before the bell rings.
Alright, so,
Mr. Kenny.
Yes, ma'am.
Schoology, Friday?
Say again.
Are we going Schoology Friday?
I'm giving you your assignment right now.
Oh, that's all we gave us to me.
Say again.
All my teachers said.
What's your question?
I'm just saying, all my teachers.
None of your teachers are using Schoology? That's because Schoology wasn't working for the first month and a half to 2 months of school. So we didn't even know when it started working. I only heard about it last week. So I haven't set anything up.
Only one of my teachers use it. That's Miss.
It did not work for the first month and a half to 2 months at least, because I kept checking and it wasn't up.
Miss
So
Robinson.
it just hasn't been, it wasn't working, and so, but I'm giving you your assignment right now. Okay. So, did I give everyone?
That's my bro. You're staring at me. Yes.
Alright. Time to grab everyone's attention and talk about the literacy for all. So here's what, I'm going to talk about this literacy for all first, okay?
Everybody knows who it is.
So I'm going to talk about literacy for all first, and I'm going to give you all a vote. You can decide what you want to work on, but you have to decide as a small group. As a small group, you can either work on literacy for all during class today, or you can go ahead, actually let's vote on it as a class. We'll just
No.
we'll be uniform as a class.
okay.
We're either going to do literacy for all, or we're going to start working on the review packet to get ready for our test, the green packet. Okay, but you'll vote in a second, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I can already
Hold on,
this.
Alana, raise her hand to ask a question. Well, we're going to have a test early to middle of next week, so that review packet will be due then,
Oh, wait.
okay? So you will still have time to work on it in class, but you won't have as much time to work on it in class. About that. If you're working on the review packet today, yes, you're allowed to talk about it within your small group. But we need to go ahead and talk about the math literacy assignment. Yes. Okay, hold on. Listen up. Now, I hate saying this on camera, but I need to say this very clearly. some teachers do not take literacy for all very seriously. I'm not one of those teachers.
We know, we already know.
Thank you. We already know. Mr. Kenny, listen, here's the thing. If I am going to be asked to do something, I'm gonna do it right, but I'm also not going to waste your time. I searched for an article that I felt was relevant to help you be more successful, and then I created an assignment based on this. No one I've ever taught has ever done this specific literacy for all, because I made this specific for y'all to help you be better successful. And so you will see an article. The article is titled 3 Mindset Shifts That Can Help Students Succeed. I think that should be somewhat relevant. This article is about a student who went off to college with lots of things stacked against him, and he found success in various ways. And this article is written by some of his professors that interacted with him, and the things that they saw that helped him be successful. Because here's the thing, I want you to be successful. Some of us, especially those of us who have our heads down, not doing anything right now, are putting ourselves in a bind and not being successful. So I'm trying to help you find a way to be more successful. I have laid out the 3 parts of this article, or of this assignment. 1, you're going to do annotations. When you read, you annotate. Now hear me very clearly on this. These annotations are for you. Don't underline bullcrap. Don't highlight bullcrap. The point of annotations is to note what is important. And so for us, we're trying to note what is necessary for success, especially in the face of difficulty and hardship. If you are completing these annotations, you want to think through and pay attention to, okay, what can I take from this article to help me be successful in my own life? That's what you should annotate, not just highlighting bullcrap. Okay? Now, part 2 is where I lay out what I am asking you to do with this paper. Part 3 is where you actually write your paper. Within part 2, you're doing an outline. So do note that. Part 2 is where you use the front and back of this page to create an outline for the paper. The better your outline is, the better your paper will be. An outline doesn't need to be full sentences. An outline needs to be the ideas that are going to go into that paragraph. Maybe a topic sentence, but then the 1 to 5 words or a phrase or whatever that's going to tell you the main point of that paragraph. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That is how an outline works. If you get confused and forget that, guess what? It's on camera. You can go and watch it on YouTube because it'll be up tonight. Now, this next part, because I want to know what your thoughts are on this. So, I'm not making your thesis. I'm giving you directions on how to make a thesis. So what do I mean by a thesis?
Like, I think it's explaining the whole article.
So it's the topic of your essay. It's maybe an overview of the article. If you look up here, I even have it in this. A clear thesis, which is a statement of purpose or a clear indication of where the paper is going. That's what a thesis does. The thesis is a statement of purpose. What is the point of you writing this? And so I may have missaid that, but I do want you to hear me say it very clearly. If I want your statement of purpose, I can't give you the thesis. I want you to have a voice. I want you to share your thoughts and your learnings and your ideas. So I can't give you a thesis for it. Now what I can do is I can give you clear expectations for what I'm looking for from each section of the paper. And that is what I have done here. I have not given you a thesis, but I have laid out 3 different parts of the paper that I am looking for. 1, 2, and 3. Pay attention to the questions in this, because I thought about these questions intentionally. After you have written your thesis, actually technically I would write my thesis maybe after I read the article and start annotating some, but I need you to reflect upon what you have read, like legitimately. Otherwise there is no point in you doing this paper. And yes, I turned the temperature up, don't freak out. I assume some of us are still a little cold. So what are the obstacles that are making it hard for you to be successful in the classroom? Like, You need to think on that. And that does not necessarily mean like, oh man, Mr. Kenny's hard. No, like what are the things going on in your life that are making it hard to be successful in the classroom? Now, I will say, I have some students in here and in other classes that are crushing it. Okay? So there's two parts to this. If you are struggling, then what obstacles are preventing you from finding success in this class? Like if you're struggling, okay, what's preventing you from finding that success? I want to know what you think is doing that. If you are doing well, then what obstacles have you overcome to find success? Because everyone, if you're finding success, you have overcome some obstacles somewhere. Obstacles you may want to consider are work. If you're working a lot, it's real hard to be successful in school. I don't think that's as relevant maybe for the freshmen, but some of us as freshmen may be working heavily. That's normally a thing for upperclassmen. Maybe your past experiences in math. Maybe you're used to math being taught in a completely different way. That's an obstacle to overcome. That makes sense. Maybe you're used to math being easier. That's an obstacle to overcome. Some students think that I teach this as an advanced class. Nope. I don't teach this as an advanced class. I teach this as a class where I know that you're capable of thinking. And so I try to get you to think. So what are your experiences in math? What's your attitude towards your education? You got your head down regularly? Probably means you don't care about your education. That's an attitude that you need to address. Sometimes I know we get tired, but when it's every day, that's a different story. You need to reflect on that because that's an obstacle that you might need to overcome. Social media, streaming, gaming, cell phones in general, those would be distractions. Reflect on the obstacles you identified and how they impact your learning. That is the most important part of this paragraph. It is not just writing down what the obstacles are, it's reflecting on how they impact your learning. Because if you haven't thought through how they impact your learning, then it's not going to help you to overcome them. Or you won't be able to overcome them. You have to identify what the problem is. You have to identify the mistakes to get better. Next, analyze the concepts of mindsets, which by the way, I'll point this out. It talks in the article about obstacles that this student overcame, but it's not necessarily the focus of the article. The focus is here. The concepts of mindsets, right? 3 mindset shifts. Mindsets presented in the article and reflect on your own time in school. Do you have a growth mindset like the one indicated in the article? Why or why not? It goes into detail about what we mean by a growth mindset and why it might be important. What is your purpose for school? If your purpose for school is to just sit here and like hope to pass, yeah, it's going to be real hard to be successful. If your goal is just to get through high school, it's hard to be successful. Just hoping to get through high school probably means you're putting in the effort to earn a C or a D. Wanting to be successful means you're probably putting in the effort to make A's and B's. But still, like, you may not get to that point. It's okay. But you have to have a purpose. If you do not already have a purpose, figure out what yours is so that you can have that to hold on to. Finally, develop a plan for success. Take what you've done in the last 2 paragraphs and use that to develop a plan for success. If you're struggling to find success, then what changes can and should you make to learn better? What do you need me to do to help you find better success? Please note, this does not mean just make my life easier or make class easier. That's not success. That's me lowering expectations. You need high expectations to be successful long term. What can I do to help you find long-term success by learning deeply? If you're already being successful, then what do you do to find success? What do you think I've done to help you be successful, or what can I do better to help you and your classmates find greater success? This is not anybody else. I took the time and effort to write this out. Are there any questions about what I'm asking you to do in each of these sections? Yes, sir.
Alright, my question is, what do you like? What's the main question of this?
That's what we're supposed to write about.
Yeah, what you're always supposed to write about. Like,
Bro, you're supposed to have a section
Yeah.
here that addresses all of this.
what I'm asking
You have a
is,
section here that's supposed to address all of this, and here. And if you look at the article title, Matthew, 3 mindset shifts that can help students succeed. What concept keeps showing up through all of these different sections?
The word succeed.
The word succeed or success.
oh, so,
So, the obstacles to your success. mindsets that can help you be successful, the things that you're going to change or need me to change for you to be successful. It's all about success, and it's based on the article. Yes, Alana. That is the same question I was about to address because that's what's already asked. It needs to answer the questions. You don't like that answer, I know.
No.
Uh-huh. Yeah, here's the thing. If I tell you a certain length, you're just going to go to that length. Do you think
Basically,
you can answer this in 2 to 3 sentences?
Probably.
No.
We're supposed to write as much as
The second.
write as much as it takes to cover everything.
Write as much as it takes to cover each of these 3 sections.
You got okay.
I know, listen,
Damn.
I know we don't like it because we want to be lazy and just meet the minimum.
No.
Not you, I'm not talking to you, Alana, because I know you never try to meet the minimum. I'm talking about the other people who were grumbling. Because you were like, okay,
I'm just trying to.
and not you.
Oh, bro, I got work to do.
I know, we're used to, but here's the given thing. We're used to low expectations. I know you're capable of more.
No, I
2 to 3 paragraphs.
Paragraph. The other.
Okay.
So.
So, here, hey, shh, listen, okay? You definitely need a thesis / introduction. You have to address these 3 different sections, and you need something of a conclusion. Now, one thing I want to say is, it doesn't have to be a 5-paragraph essay. If you want to make short, quick paragraphs for each obstacle, then you could end up with 2 or 3 short paragraphs here. It can't be 2 to 3 sentences, that I can guarantee you. But you could identify your obstacles within a paragraph. A short paragraph on how one of those obstacles is impacting your learning, things like that. So this could be multiple paragraphs. I'm not saying page-long paragraphs, but a paragraph needs to tell a single story. It needs to address one concept in its entirety. You need at least 5 paragraphs, but it could be more if you break it up the right way. But you need to answer the questions.
Is it okay if we put like sections, like how, let's say you're 30, then
Or you could just.
Like say section 1, section 2, section 3.
yeah.
The one, so typically we would allow sections like that when they are drastically different things, but don't these 3 things kind of go together?
You would just end it.
So I would just end it, I would start a new paragraph when I get to my new section. Right? Literally what you talk about in these 2 paragraphs, or these 2 sections, because it doesn't have to be 2 paragraphs, these 2 sections needs to impact what you do in this section. Okay?
And your thesis and your conclusion.
Conclusion.
Counted as a paragraph.
Yes. Yeah. Your thesis can be, and I will say this, like you can write an actual introduction paragraph that ends with a thesis, or you can just do a thesis to start, and I'm fine with that. And then your conclusion can be just a couple of sentences, and I'm fine with that. And that's why I say it needs to be at least 5 paragraphs, right? It needs to have the thesis 1, and then 1 paragraph for each section at least. But again, you might do more than 1 paragraph for each of those sections. It's your choice. You just need to answer the questions. Okay? So, by a show of hands, who wants to work on literacy for all right now?
Put your hand up, please.
Okay? Who wants to work on the review packet to get ready for the test next week?
Y'all so lame.
Alright, so we need to have our green review packet out, and that is what we're working on within our small groups. We're working together as a class. You're what? I didn't give it to you yesterday.
I'm done with that. I know that person.
Okay.
Hold on, sir. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to find Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I want to clarify something. You are allowed to talk on and help each other on the review packet. That does not mean that we are talking about this, that, and the other. We're talking about the math. If we're not talking about the math, your group will be silent and you will work individually. Is that clear?
We did it anyway.
Don't get sidetracked. Don't let it happen. Here it is. Say it one more time.
Why not?
Say again? Yes, it is across the y-axis.
On this side of
Well, where would that D go? Where's D prime?
We are above the.
It's just across the y-axis. Each point needs to go across the y-axis. Yes, sir.
No.
No. You've been sleeping all day. What do you mean, why? You haven't been taking notes?
measure at 5.
Been all